I'll have to have you drop off now, but I'm going to go ahead and start that. So, yeah. Giga-Green's only been around for about a year and a half at this point. Very new to the organizational side of things, but we're ex-Microsoft employees, really, attuned to the technologies and leveraging how to actually make it work for your organizations. Along with that, we are, like I said, a silver partner in the productivity suite. We are also an authorized educational reseller, so we do a lot of work with schools, and that's where System Center comes in. But today, again, talking about Microsoft 365, and now Intune plays in more than anything. So let's get started because I have a lot to show everybody. All right, so if nobody has told you about what Microsoft 365 is, it is a combination of other products that are out there currently that they just lump together for one sum fee. It includes Windows 10, Office 365, Enterprise Mobility, and Security Suite. And there's different versions that come with the different types of Microsoft 365 that you purchase. There's a table here that kind of breaks it down and shows what you get when you purchase each specific SKU of Microsoft 365, and then the different types of additions that come along with it, like E3 or E5, and the pricing does change based off of whether or not you're ordering E3 or E5 for the higher end SKUs. And then of those of you in the educational world, we'll actually be doing another webcast probably next month sometime where we'll be discussing the changes to educational offerings across the board. As you can see, we're actually back to A3 and A5 type offers, which were actually an offer SKU a while ago, went away, and now they're back. So a lot to catch up on that end, but this is what's included when you purchase the bundle offer of Microsoft 365. Education does come with Minecraft, but other than that, the only really notable is that the small business edition, Microsoft 365 Business, is limited to 300 users. The enterprise version is not, and again, the big differentiator between E3 and E5 would be VoIP capabilities. Before I go any further, because we're going to start going to demos after this, does anybody have any questions about the offering itself, Microsoft 365 as a whole? Sorry, I don't have more pricing information. The only thing that they have publicly available currently is the 365 Business Edition. So I'll definitely, get some more information as the pricing gets rolled out. But any questions before we start going into more of the demo side of things? All right. So common challenges people run into all the time is you get a new workstation and a new user. That person has never been in your organization. They don't really know how to do their job, much alone get connected to their computers and start working and becoming a productive member of your teams. There's onboarding. There's a lot of support that you can do to get them brought up to speed. Yes, Dave, there should be a PowerPoint presentation going on right now. Can everybody else see? Should have did a system check before getting started, but can I get a +1 if everybody can see? Okay. David, you'll probably have to go ahead and rejoin. There should be a PowerPoint slide currently. I'll be sharing out some remote screens in a second. All right, so what I'm going to really be showing today is an out-of-the-box computer that has Intune already integrated into it on the latest version of Windows, that is 1703. Intune is already a service baked into the operating system. So I'm going to show you how to leverage that to really speed up your deployments and get your employees working very quickly. And then also how the automation factors take over after that and keep applying changes even after they're up and running. So if this is really tiny, I'm sorry. This is the best way I could think of doing this because I needed a brand new out-of-the-box machine. And to do that, I needed virtual machines because then I could keep redeploying them and making changes, obviously. So this is the actual first screen that you will see when a Windows 10 machine comes up, and it's going to ask you where you want to start with the US. So we're going to run through this real quick. And if at any point in time I go too fast, please just let me know, slow down. If you have any questions during any of this, again, just let me know. We'll take a break and answer those questions. I will also be doing a Q&A session at the end of this. Don't need a second keyboard, so we'll just go ahead and skip that. Alright, so this does take about 2 or 3 minutes. Going to be a little bit boring while we have to sit through this and watch these updates roll in. It shouldn't take too long, but then we're actually going to see a login prompt. And this is actually running very quick right now, so that's a good thing. Alright, so I went ahead and created a test user for this, and his name is Mr. Buster. I'm a huge fan of Mythbusters, so that's why I use Buster as my test guy. But gotta make sure I spell my account right. And we're gonna go ahead and log in. It's gonna ask me for his password. And I'm actually okay with giving everybody his password. I'm just gonna type into the chat. If you're reading the article or the PowerPoint presentation, you will see why. There's actually a challenge at the end, but we'll loop back at that at the end. Alright, some quick notifications about setting up privacy and things like that on the device. Go ahead and just accept them. It's just if you want Cortana to be working, if you want added support for ads, things like that. Again, probably about another minute or two here while this actually finishes setting up. So Rusty, there's yes and no. You cannot deploy it from scratch because there's no deployment capabilities. There is what are called provisioning packages that you can run, and I'll get to those down the line, but if you want to go and actually deploy an image from scratch, you do need System Center. Intune, I imagine, will get there at some point, besides housing and deploying a Pixie image, but at this point it's just for configuring post-install. But you could set up a Pixie server or something on-prem and deploy an image of 1703, and then when it comes up, it's going to take over the Intune management just because the agent is built in. But what we're trying to mimic right now is a brand new PC and a brand new user. First day on the job, first time the PC's ever been set up. So we've kind of trickled in some of the enhanced security features throughout this, so you can see what some more of the EMS functionality is. One of the functionality is it's not too phone call. Multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication. So at this point, it's asking me to enroll my cell phone, and it knows my cell phone because I've previously enrolled it. But if it didn't, it would ask me for my cell phone number there, and I would just put that in. Then the user is going to get a text message notification where they need to enroll the device so that it becomes a two-factor authentication mechanism. Alright, so part of the device requirements is to actually set up a PIN. Out of the box, it is a 6-digit PIN. And again, 100% comfortable giving you this because his account is secure. This is the PIN that I'm going to use out of the box, 123321. And it fulfills the complexity requirements and lets us in. So you would want to actually accept this. There should be a way to actually configure network settings so that Intune will do this on its own, but at this point we haven't actually told Intune to enroll itself. We would have to either yes or no, and then the settings would take over at that point. So again, at this point we have not enrolled in Intune. That's fine. I want to show one thing before we do, and that is just if you need a user to get to work immediately, they can actually log right into the portal without ever having to put their credentials in again. So if they just launch Edge and go to portal.office.com without ever prompting me for a password or user account or anything, it should log me right in, and I can see their portal, get to their email, and start working from here. my URL. There we go. Still was establishing network connectivity, so that's why it failed to find it. But you can see I'm in. I should be able to go right into my email account here and access everything. Now, you would think that's pretty not secure. The reason it's set up this way so that on my current network that people can actually do this, right? They can get in without having additional checks besides that enrollment into multi-factor. Now, you could just install Office from the portal there, right? But then we have to train users on how to actually get in and do that. If we can get them to enroll the device into Intune, we're going to have much more management capabilities over it, and they're not going to have to do that. So we can eliminate the Office install step for them so that they can just actually enroll the device and have it a singular step for the users. To do that, it's going to look like it's already enrolled, and I imagine this will get changed out over time so that this would be more iconic that it's being enrolled by an MDM. But I went a little bit faster. As you can see, it's already attached to my Azure AD environment, right? That's fine, but it's not actually managed by an MDM. To do that, you have to actually run through and connect it, and then it's going to pull down and activate Intune. It will ask you to log in here again because when you enroll the device, you do have to provide your password, and I believe it's going to do a multi-factor check here as a two-factor authentication. To make sure that we're properly enrolling the device. And it didn't MFA check me there. I could customize it so I could. So you can set how long the multi-factor checks are good for, and you would just lower the window to make sure that it did catch them there if you wanted to put an additional security check there. So now it is installed or managed by Intune. It does take some time to push down the different changes with some of the applications that we have set up, but without doing anything more, we're just going to let this PC sit and get some of the additional configurations that I have set up through Intune. While I do that, I'm going to show you what it looks like on the mobile side. But before I move over and do an iPad experience, does anybody have any questions about what's going on or anything that they should be expecting to see, or just questions in general? Okay, so what I have here, let me know if you guys can see the iPad now. Okay. So this is just an iPad. I have the screen mirrored so everybody can see it. And this is the same individual. Now let's say they have Outlook on their machine or on their tablet already, and they want to access their email. We'd be pretty insecure if they just were able to pop in and start doing whatever they wanted with their email on another device outside of Windows, right? So that's part of Intune, is locking down all the different devices and all the different ways to access Office 365 and the different materials. So let's try Buster's account. Rusty, this is just Outlook, just straight Outlook. I haven't set up anything else on the iPad, just trying to access their email through the downloaded Outlook app. Password 1. I will get an MFA check because I have it set up here. So, all right. So you can see there's some additional work that needs to be done here to actually get into his email. You're going to see this message, and you see a similar one on Android, so it kind of helps guide the user into what needs to happen next. But what it's saying is that there just needs to be additional management done to this device for them to access their email. If you hit enroll now, it's going to take them straight into the Apple Store. Nope. It takes you to a link to go to the Apple Store. If you click get the app, it's there. If you already have it installed, it's going to show up top, so we can just click OK as I did install it previously, just to speed things up. But then we'll actually go through the enrollment process and see that. So you can see the accounts here. Go ahead and enter in a password again. Still going to get MFA checks just because I have not completely successfully enrolled this device. Once we have, you will get less of these until they reach their timeout period. But until it trusts the device, it wants to make sure that it is enrolling the correct user. And some strange things do happen. This is not the first time it's eaten my account login, but it should log me in pretty quickly the second time here because I've already have a token. Didn't change anything. Same thing, different results. But should actually enroll this time. It's going to throw some errors, warnings more than anything, just saying what needs to be done. If you read it more closely, it's actually saying what's going to be taken over as part of the doing the enrollment. So it's saying that we can actually retrieve any of the lost data or any of the data in these applications, and then who to contact, what they can and cannot see, and then actually goes through and does the enrollment process. This is where iPad starts to differ a little bit from the Android experience, where it's going to install a management profile, and we'll see that come up here in just a second. All right, you need to go ahead and install the management profile. This is the local passcode that was already on the device. If this profile that I was installing was more restrictive than what was already on the device, it would make me change the passcode. It is set at 4 digits on both sides, so this management profile doesn't require it. You will actually see it on the Windows machine where it will make you change the PIN that I entered in initially. But this is going to wrap itself up here shortly. All right, so that was the first half, is actually enrolling the device. Then it is a compliance check. The compliance check is a bunch of different requirements that you set up around the device, and I will show you that more from the management side when we get to that part. So, should be fully enrolled at this point. Let's go back and try to access his email. Relaunch Outlook. If you can't tell, I am not an iPad user. I am an Android friendly. There's an actual back button. That'd help. I guess I don't know how long I've been on mute, so I am sorry for probably being a lot of dead air. Intune is still running. We did get into the individuals into Buster's email. Hope everybody saw that. If not, we can definitely go back. Outlook should still be configured at this point, so we can just pop back in here. You will shortly see a notification on the iPad saying that a new application needs to be downloaded and installed. Once it gets that notification, I'll pop it back up so you can see that, and then how that actually handles required applications. since Intune is still populating and pushing itself out, we're going to take a look at the Azure portal to see how Intune is now managed. If anybody's done any work with Intune in the past, you know that there was kind of its own management portal. It had a different URL altogether. This has completely changed and is now just part of the regular Azure portal. So this is the home blade for Intune. To get to it, I actually have it pinned here, so it's quite easy. But you can just search Intune in the search. Once it comes up here, it's going to give you an overview of your environment. You will now want to be using Intune through the Azure portal. It is the new version, I guess. It has different capabilities. It's managed completely different. Going forward, everything's going to be done through the Azure portal. All right, so kind of take a look at how we're set up already. We have 6 compliant devices, a couple device error configurations, mostly because they probably don't exist anymore. But yeah, to get started, you can look at the enrollment, what it takes to actually enroll a device, but we actually just saw all those processes, right? I showed you how we're configured. I don't want to actually double up on that because you just saw it live. So if we go to the device compliance, this is where you start setting up things that the devices have to follow. These policies are OS specific as well. So if you want to apply something to Android, you can do that. If you want to apply something to iOS, you can do that. And to Windows, you can do that as well. I should have some policies here. I'm just waiting for them to... Policy. I do have configuration policies, though, for sure. So I can show you some of those. Do one for Android. So you can kind of see some of the auto-block settings. If you want to block rooting of devices, this is where you would do it. You can also block the install of the company portal on rooted devices. Can configure minimum operating system versions, whether or not it would even enroll in the portal based off of if it was Android 4.0 or Android 5.0. Whether or not to require passwords, whether or not to require encryption on the device, and then blocking USB. This is more configuring device-specific configurations. There's more things you can do around the applications themselves, but let's take a look at actually how to configure a device itself. So here's everything that I have created, and here's the Windows settings that are currently being applied to that machine that's being set up in the back end. You can take a look at the different properties that I have set up here. There's a lot of different settings out of the box, and part of what makes Intune so much more powerful now is what are called CSPs, or configuration service providers. It's going to completely change mobile device management going forward. It makes it a lot more granular and control, where you can actually modify registry directories and things like that. Makes it much more powerful, like System Center, through a cloud agent, through a actually built-in agent on the machine, right? So you don't even have to install an agent for this stuff to start rolling out from the get-go. But you can see there's a ton of configurations that you can make, just as as they're pre-configured. I'm actually going to show you what I'm talking about to getting more into the specific configurations. But yeah, let's back up here. This is also where you set password requirements, whether or not the device needs to be encrypted, camera access, whether or not you can do web tethering or wireless tethering, so you can have another device connect to it and use its internet. A lot of different customizations. This is one that I'm currently working on, and I haven't cracked it yet, but what you're able to do is create custom policies that modify things based off of it's called OMA URIs. Now that's a big acronym. I forget what exactly stands for, but it's a new open standard of device management from remote standpoints. So you actually build in changes to the registry from here so that it will actually enable different services as you see fit. If you're familiar with System Center, it would be analogous to a configuration item, but this is how they're going to be doing it through Intune, and eventually what will replace System Center down the line. So that machine that I have actually deploying should enable the remote desktop connectivity to it. Haven't worked out all the kinks yet, so I'm not sure if it will, but this is supposedly the way to be doing it. So a lot more power than what you've probably seen in the past in the other portal. Just no way to do any of this stuff in I guess, Intune 1.0. So as I have everything set up, I have it set up deploying to different groups of machines, right? You can actually build dynamic groups so that as new Windows machines or Androids or iOS machines come on into your environment, it will actually detect those, put them into this grouping, and then apply all the settings that you need to those machines. One of the best things about Intune is its ability to deploy applications across all types of devices, right? So here's actually the Microsoft Authenticator that I was talking about. Looks like there's an issue pushing it out on the Android side. I haven't been doing a lot of troubleshooting on the Android side because we're demoing iOS, so there might be some problems. But Chrome has actually been installing successfully, so I don't know why that's listed as an error. But I'll show you that here in a second. If you want to list the actual applications that we have set up, here's everything that I've onboarded so far, and it's pretty easy to add new ones. The harder type of ones are what are called line of business applications. So your Adobe's, your Chrome, Firefox, things like that. You have to get them into an MSI version, so then you can deploy them out from here. But once you do, it's pretty easy. So if you want to add an app, there's a lot of different types you can add. Android, iOS. This is where you actually add the Pro Plus suite into Windows 10 machines. So this machine that is setting up in the background will actually have Office installed on it due to the package that we have placed here. Web apps would be your SharePoint-based applications. You can deploy things from the application store. Just because of time's sake and showing you the most functionality, I want to show deploying an iOS app. It actually is the most integrated into the Azure portal at this point, where you can search the iOS store from here and pull information in, and just it's more simplified versus the Android side, where you actually have to go out and find a link to the application and then put it in versus just loading it from the portal here. But if we want to do Spotify, pretty easy, just load it in. It's going to ask you for configurations, but since it's pulling from the iOS store already, it loads all this information. As we're on the Android side, you'd have to populate it. One thing to do is give it categories, because you can actually group application deployments by categories down the line. So you want to be categorizing things by productivity or I guess development, whatever it might be, then hit OK. That's actually going to go through and add in the app. Since it is downloading it from the iOS store, it does take a little bit, but then once it is installed, you can go under assignments here and push it out to any set of groups that you want to have access to this application. So that's actually where this comes in, Rusty. So there's two types once you pull in the app. There's two types of deployment: an available, well, there's more than that. There's an available and a required, but I'll show you what I'm referring to here. So I'm going to pull up my all iOS group here and set that as the group to be deployed to. And it asks me for the type. So available means that it's going to be in the store and will be whitelisted for them to download and install with admin privileges. Not app of gold just means you wouldn't configure it. Required means that, yes, you will get this app the next time the machine sets up and checks in. Uninstall will pull it off the machine. And then available with or without enrollment means that the device doesn't actually have to be in Intune and just have access to the company portal. Most of the time, you would want them to be enrolled because it's a protected application. So if I set it as available, it should appear in the company portal for them to download and install. On the flip side, you still need to configure the devices to prevent running applications that aren't in the company portal. So until you actually set up those configurations and lock down the device to not allow personal applications, that it's not going to whitelist it per se. And if you want to go more of a kiosk type thing where it's just that application that they can use on it, you actually have to go through and deploy kiosk type settings as well, which Intune does support. So let us see where we're at. Good. So just so everybody's aware, I'm now switching back over to the Windows 10 machine. As you can see, some things have changed. Desktop changed. Now it's a more branded machine. We know that it's a company type machine at this point, and it's going to go ahead and log in with the PIN. Haven't quite gotten all the configuration settings, but you can see Chrome is actually installed, which is good, and it does work. No problems there. We should also see OneDrive, Outlook, all those other good applications that we were missing before, which we do. And again, I still haven't put my password in more than once at this point. So I did put in a PIN, right? That is different because a PIN is specific to each individual machine, as where a password's good across, the whole organization. So I still need to set up Outlook, right? I haven't done that at this point. Go ahead and log into Outlook. Go ahead and accept everything. Did this 6 times. 6 times and I never failed here. Performance anxiety. Nothing like live demos, right? Ideally, there wouldn't be any problems here. You just log right in, take you into your inbox, you start working in Outlook just the way you have always. I'm hoping Skype does the same. Not does the same, but actually works. This works across all Office apps. Skype, OneDrive, Teams will eventually incorporate into it. I think I know why it's not at this point. So if you see the credential message popping up here, it's actually asking me to update the PC credentials, which we'll do here. Its password instead of just a PIN code. And the reason it's probably throwing that error is because it doesn't like the minimum PIN requirement that I have set, or that Buster has already, and it's not set correctly for the organizational requirements. Once the machine reboots, it's going to check that and ask Buster to change his PIN. Alright, I'm going to reboot and try this again, but we should actually see some more configuration changes once this comes back up. And the only reason is because not all the changes can be made to a live environment. It has to pre-stage the changes so that the next time the machine reboots, they can go ahead and change them over. Specifically, you should see the desktop background change to the Giga-Green logo. So you'll see here, I tried to enter the same PIN that I had in before. It does not actually meet the security requirements anymore, so it's going to ask me to change it. And I believe I changed it so that it has to be alphanumeric. So I'm going to try just numbers again. Doesn't actually meet the complexity requirement. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, ABC. 1, 2, 3, ABC. Doesn't like that either. So the requirements actually get pretty complicated. And I went through and set this up pretty quickly, so the password requirements are pretty strong. So went ahead and set that. As you can see, desktop background did change. So that was one of the hanging configurations. Outlook should not give us any more issues. Still have my account. So one thing with single sign-on is you do have to provide the account. It is probably going to figure itself out over time, but as it sits now, it doesn't pull all the account information in all the time. With single sign-on, you are getting no password needed. This should log right in. As you can see, also here, Outlook set up, no problem. And I should be in Outlook. No questions. Same thing with Skype here. I didn't actually have to enter in a password, just had to put the account in, went ahead, passed everything through, and we're up and running. If you did have, say, like QuickBooks or something like that you needed it pushed out as well, you could definitely tack that on here, and it would just show up on the user's desktop. But yeah, that's about all I had for the Intune side of things. One quick other thing to show you back on the Android or iOS side, and then I'll be opening up for questions. But as you can see here, this is what it looks like when there's notifications that come up. One of these should actually talk about an app install from the store, and this is where it's talking about installing the Microsoft Authenticator. I'm going to go ahead and install that. I need the password for the local account. And the reason I'm having the authenticator pushed down is it actually facilitates single sign-on different types of devices. So as this thing is pulling down, it's a Microsoft-based tool that you can use to authenticate. It handles the multi-factor side of things as well. It's a really great tool to have pushed down because it really simplifies accessing different documents and things like that. But it doesn't come installed naturally, so you actually have to push it down and then have the user enroll in it, and this is what's going to allow them to do like a fingerprint check to access Outlook or things like that. You can also tie in biometric locks into all this. I don't have it set that tightly on the security side just because not all the devices I have it, but yeah. So the next time I'm on this iPad and I was to actually get a multi-factor check, it's going to let me go through the authenticator, which if I have it tied to my fingerprint will authenticate to my finger. So the question is, do we have geofencing options in iOS and Android? Not traditional geofencing where if you show up in an IP range outside of your approved IP ranges, it's going to block you. Well, actually, I just described the functionality that it has specifically. So what Intune has is the ability to put in IP addresses and white label them or whitelist them as approved addresses, so that all these checks get bypassed. I'm on my PC, my personal PC, from a whitelisted IP address, so that I don't have to put in any of this authentication stuff to access Office 365. If you're looking for like geofencing, where if they take the device to say Spain or India or somewhere like that, it's going to detect that it's off-site and put different restrictions on it. No, there isn't those types of requirements or those types of functionality built in yet. But you could just build different groups where you know the device is going to be. And you could also probably build a query that looks at the device location and put that into a specific group that would allow you to put configurations to whenever something's in that location. But no, you can't put in like an IP address range for China and then have everything follow those rules when it checks in on those IPs. Good question, though. So definitely some homework. If you guys have more questions about this, you need to learn what a configuration service provider is. This is going to be changing how mobile device management is done. This is a great introductory article, and it kind of explains where to go from here. But take a look at it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll answer as best I can, but this stuff is new. It's not very well documented, so we're going to be learning together. A few other things, and I'll wrap this up. I did say I would talk to education, or Intune for Education, so I'm just going to hit some quick bullet points on that. I still do not have access to demoing it out. It's only available to educational entities, so it's something that's hard for partners to get their hands on. It does only work with Windows 10 devices. So a lot of the functionality that I showed you here today does only work with 1703, the latest versions of Windows, but there is backwards compatibility for application deployment and policy configurations and things like that for Windows 7 and 8. But for Windows 10, for Intune for Education, you have to be on Windows 10 specifically. It will only manage Windows 10 devices. Kind of a simplified management console, still requires AD Connect to populate Azure Active Directory, and then there's some good links if you need some more additional information about it. And then RS, I'm not 100% sure what you're asking. So Azure Active Directory Domain Services actually runs off Azure Active Directory. If you're talking the on-prem version of just Active Directory Domain Services, you would have to use AAD Connect to replicate it to the cloud. If you're looking for this type of capability without user enrollment, you would look at System Center, but that's not going to handle mobile devices. You're always going to need user accounts for your end users so that they can successfully enroll mobile devices and link it to their accounts, which requires a cloud-based account. Does that answer your question? All right, very last slide here. Kind of got a challenge for everybody and a chance to win a $25 gift card. So kind of try to pride ourselves in security here. I did leave a loophole. There is a way into Buster's account. And inside his account is actually a top secret email that includes a picture of a gift card, all information included, so you can just redeem it online. But you're not going to get there in the conventional ways. This is his account and password. I will not change that. Nothing that I have done after today will change either. We have not actually looked at the mechanism of how to get into his email that is available to you guys. So it's out there. You can try playing around with it. I'll let you know it's based off of an older technology, and if I did want to lock everybody out that way, I could just disable this older technology and we'd be 100% secure. But the idea is that with everything that I've showed you guys today, even with his account, password, and everything, I may get blown up with multi-factor authentication checks, but no matter how many times you guys try, since you're not in my approved whitelisting zones, nobody's going to get into Buster's account unless I approve it. So that was the first of many multi-factors I'm sure I'm going to get, which I will not respond. Good luck getting through the traditional portal. This link won't get you there. But yeah. We'll go into a Q&A session, and if anybody has questions, feel free to ask, but that's all I had. And the audience is on mute at this point. Yep. So I'm actually recording. Once that finishes up, we'll send out an email to all the attendees with a recording attached. Should just be like a OneDrive share link, so you can pull it down from there. Brian. So, good question. This is kind of going to give away the Buster hack, but yeah. So what you're referring to is an older mechanism called Exchange Active Sync. To disable that, you just disable Active Sync across the board. That without Active Sync enabled, there's no way to get in with what's called legacy authentication. Active Sync is the only thing that it still supports it, and newer applications, Exchange or Office 2013 and above, are all OAuth enabled, meaning that they use the latest mechanisms, right, for authentication. And yeah, so these third-party apps that are connecting in aren't actually using OAuth, because if they were, they'd have to be on a managed device, just like everything I've shown you today. But like I said, ActiveSync lets you in unabated. Well, if there's not any more questions, we'll probably close it down. Thanks everybody for coming. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Our contact information's at the bottom of the slide deck. But yeah, I hope everybody has a good Labor Day weekend coming up here, and appreciate your time.